Hello and welcome to Think, the latest series in FCM's Thought Leadership Programme. I'm Scott Alboni, FCM's Chief Marketing Officer, and your host for today as we discuss the hugely exciting topic of embracing the future, AI insights and what's happening in the big wide world, as well as how this is affecting planning and budgets in the corporate environment, individualism, and an interesting lens on how this all applies to the corporate travel space. I'm joined today by Melissa Elf, our Global Chief Operating Officer, who has over 25 years experience in the managed travel space and an avid customer promoter. And I'm also honored to welcome Dr. Poppy Crum, a renowned futurist and adjunct Stanford professor, whose work explores how technology shapes human learning and neuroplasticity. Dr. Crum is at the forefront of developing cutting-edge customer technologies that enhance our daily lives by merging data, human insight, and emerging innovations. With deep expertise in AI and machine learning, she's redefining how technology connects our physical and digital worlds. As a former CTO, chief scientist, and holder of 37 patents, Dr. Crum has earned numerous prestigious accolades, including the 2021 Hedy Lamarr Award for Innovation. Welcome, both of you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I just wanted to say it's especially a pleasure to join Mel and you, Scott, in this dialogue. So looking forward to the conversation we have.
Yeah, agree. Thank you. And great to be here, everyone.
Pleasure to have you. And that's also not forgetting the big welcome to all of our viewers who've joined us today. Our team is on hand behind the scenes answering questions for you live. So if you have anything that you want to ask us or put to our team, please throw that in the chat throughout our session today. So to kick us off, I just wanted to say personally, I'm hugely excited about the pace of change and advancements with AI and future-facing technologies. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to discuss how we use trends in AI and the impact on people to rewrite the rules, and especially within travel programs as we take the discussion further today. So Poppy, as our resident specialist, why don't you give us a little overview around what's happening out there in the big wide world?
Absolutely. So one moment. I thought it was good to start with two different quotes. And, when we think of right now, the age of AI, everyone is aware of agents, and agents are everywhere. Agents solving problems for us in different areas, agents replacing things we used to do, agents supporting how we think, how we create, how we decide, how we scale. Every one of these things can be driven by AI, but I want to sort of talk about what's the implication to that. What are the implications to us in the future? What are the implications to us right now in who we are, how we think, what we know, what we trust, or where we need more human connection? I like to say agency or absence. So there are two quotes. Reid Hoffman, you may have been reading, a brilliant man, reading a lot of the things he's been talking about for the future. And he says the 9-to-5 workforce will end by 2034 and be replaced by AI agents. There is some truth to that. But there's also another issue, which is, I love this quote. I was sitting next, and this is true. I was sitting, at a film a couple of weeks ago about the new space era, and there were a number of Berkeley CS students there, and they looked at me and they said, you know what? Most of my classmates can't start writing a paper without using ChatGPT. Now, they weren't saying that to me because they thought that was a great thing. They were frankly terrified because they know that it's taking away capabilities that they want to have and they need to have to be as successful as they want to be able to be on the forward. So it's how do we bring those things together, which gets to how does our brain shape who we are based on the data, based on the technology we use every day, and how can we optimize that to be the best for us, for our customers, for our workforce. Let me give a quick example. So this is an image you've all seen before, and I think it conjures lots of interesting ideas when you look at this image of the Earth. But let me tell a quick story. I, at the time, was in the Smithsonian Planetarium with my 2.5-year-old daughter. And we're watching your typical film you might watch in a planetarium, Journey to the Sun. It starts in a busy city street like New York, LA, and we go on our journey, our space journey out to the sun, and we pass in perspective of the Earth that looks like this, the quintessential NASA image. And my 2.5-year-old in a completely dark, quiet theater does what it caught me a little off guard. As loud as she possibly could when she sees this image, she yells, minions. Okay. Now, at first I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Why is she doing this? And then I suddenly realized her experientially established prior of this image was coming from this one. And as far as she was concerned, the data, the exposure to her experience in the world, that was a perfectly legitimate answer of how she reacted. She'd never seen an image of a perspective of the Earth that wasn't immediately followed by her favorite little yellow creatures, right? But it also, as lighthearted as it seems, it's really a critical part of who we are and what it means to be humans, which is we have vastly different experiences, wants, needs, but foundational experiences of the same physical information. It's driven by our underlying biologies being different, our statistical data of exposures, the things that are in our environments change, whether we grew up in a village in the Middle East, a town in the Midwest, a city like Kathmandu or New York, urban, rural environments, the sounds, the colors, the contours, the hues, the data and information in our environments shapes our brains because it shapes what our brains need to be successful, how our brains have to work to allocate information because there's a limited amount of resources to help us be successful in those environments. You can look at people's hearing thresholds and actually predict what city they live in the world because the noise of our environments foundationally shapes who we are. And you can then think about, if I even just looking at the colors, which are hues in these different scenes, how my brain is going to allocate different resources to help me detect differentiation so that I have different sensitivities. If I'm in an environment with lots of vertical lines versus soft contours, I have to behave differently to be successful. I have to see differently, and my brain changes foundationally at the level of neuroplasticity. Which gets me to a couple of points that are really critical to as we think about our relationship with AI and how we use agents and how we use our tools and bridge those as successfully as possible, which is, we use new tools, we become new people. Our brains change. We get gain capabilities, but we also want to make sure that capability is augmenting who we are as humans. For example, in London, many of you are familiar with the London black cab drivers. They go through a really rich, especially historically, training program to learn to navigate the city streets of London. Zoom back about 12 years, 12, maybe 15 years. And what you have is, a lot of data and information that's been trained and learned. And when scientists go and look at the brains of a London black cab driver, this is back in 2008, 2010, they would see the areas of the brain most devoted in the hippocampus that are really critical for how we learn to navigate spatial environments and new spaces were much bigger for a London cab driver than your normal average individual. But guess what? When you look at the brains of those individuals today, or of a black cab driver or cab driver today, you don't see that same allocation because it's not such a critical differentiation. Why? Because we have AI, we have technology on our mobile devices, we have the customers in their back seats have the same information, if not more, because they have now, all of that data coming down from, eyes in the sky that allow them to be able to not just navigate the city streets of London, but to be able to forecast, to predict things that will happen, to be able to optimize and make better decisions and have better rapid insights that are reactive. So now you can, the resources in someone's brain change to support that. When we think about this is really technology-driven neuroplasticity shapes who we are, how we behave, and what we experience. Across the domains, though, AI is changing every bit of how people behave. It's changing efficiency. It's changing ideation. It's changing scale and reach. For doctors, where are they adopting AI the most? They're adopting it for, aggregating data and information across individuals, across their patients. Also, AI can be used, for diagnostics. But the reason I'm mentioning this is so if a doctor uses AI to aggregate their data, it's a great time saver, but guess what? It means their brain isn't exercising the same patterns of associations that they would have made in the past. It makes them a less good diagnostician, but maybe they can do a lot more rapidly At the same time, now we have to lean into AI for diagnostics because the human in the loop is not doing the same things that exercise their brains and made them have the same neural connections they used to. So you always have to think about what is it and how do you build that relationship. On the creative arts industry, the same way. We're using AI to realize and ideate things much faster, create things that are, you can bring to scale quite fast. From a custom CRM perspective, we're able to, AI agents are everywhere, but are they replacing the human experience? That's the real question, is how do you actually build the right relationship between AI and the customer? We're using AI for scaling insights in science, for finding patterns that a human can't find. How do we bring together this multimodal data to accelerate where we are able to go? The last sort of example I want to use here is when you think about where it's changing an industry. I like to zoom in on how technology shapes our brain and allows us to forecast and think about where we're going to be. In the photography industry, for example, when we look back at where we were in the 50s or 60s, these are images, my uncle was a photographer. We had different constraints. It's thinking about your workforce, thinking about your customer, thinking about what are the limitations, the highest costs, the highest risks for me. And in the 50s or 60s, you had to get the shot right. You had to get the lighting right. Where are neural resources allocated? They're allocated in understanding and setting up that shot before you take it, because the cost is in film, the cost is in time. But then we moved to 1990, and suddenly we have what we call post-processing, Adobe Photoshop. We don't need to worry about what happens in the shot. We'll fix it later. We'll fix those things later because we have the technology to do so. But that also means the brain of an expert has changed. The brain of the industry, of the workforce has changed. They've got different pressures, different capabilities that define what skill is, as well as what expectations are of their customers. Then we moved to 2007, where now we've democratized we've taken the skill of the expert and democratized it into many different sets and capabilities. And when we did that, it also meant the cost of being an expert, of taking many shots. We didn't need to get it right. We just needed to have a lot. But you still needed to know what good was, because that was still a skill. But now we're in a place where we can both, from a marketing perspective, from a innovation, from a technology perspective, we can fully generate the content. We're using AI, and we can also anticipate and predict how it will be received by a human on the other side. We have full closed loop, both generation and prediction, for good or for bad, but that's where we're at. So we've completely changed and redefined what it means to be an expert and what neurons are needed to support that. So that leads me just to this sort of the three areas that are really impacting human change that we have to think about at every point, which is neural change. Anytime in the human brain in the age of AI, we use new tools, we become new people. We can forecast and think about and understand how that shapes us, who it is, and who we become because of the tools we use. We're closing the loop to our users, and that's where the most important thing, I believe, for your future and how you work with agents and how you work with your consumers and your workforce is understanding how you close the loop to the modern digital twin, which is effectively hyper-personalization and understanding the insights, effective insights and data to drive the most successful personal experiences for your users, but where that data comes from and how interoperable it is, how that data feeds the experiences you can bring your consumers. Mm-hmm. And I'll pause right there. Thank you.
That's amazing, Poppy. A great opener, I think, to get us all thinking, big picture thinking, and so incredible with some of the examples you gave there. So Mel, I guess to mimic Poppy's flow there from the big world aspect down to the world of corporate travel. How do you think some of this applies within our industry and service and customer experience?
Yeah, that was a great lead in, Poppy. Thanks for that introduction. And I think, what I probably want to do is just take a step back for a second and think about corporate travel overall. And if we think about, some of the things our customers really want, they want travel to be seamless. They just want a great experience for their people. They want an efficient way of booking. They want best choice, best pricing, and they want value across their programs. And they just want their travelers to be safe, accounted for, and their well-being. And well-being in the travel world is for self, but it's also for planet when we talk about sustainability. But I actually think regardless of the advances of technology that you're talking about, Poppy, I actually don't think those three things will really change drastically in terms of the needs and wants of corporate travel and businesses' needs. But I do think AI is going to provide the ability to enhance on delivering those with a slightly different lens, to your point, around using data sets, etc. One thing that's interesting in corporate is that what has changed is a shift in travel programs wanting to have more of a people-first focus. So, how do companies make it easy to attract, retain talent, ensure wellness of their people? But companies are really challenged, I think, in how do they navigate satisfying traveller needs and wants with the pressures of still delivering cost controls within policy and guidelines. So I think AI has the ability to help do this. And I think it has the ability to link that traveller experience beyond what we see today, which still meets traveller needs and also company needs. And I think that's what makes AI exciting. Like, we can actually move from quite a structured and I think sometimes a bit of a rigid world of limiting choice and controlling experiences for travellers for the purpose of the greater organisational good to probably more of a personalised, traveller preferred led experience world that actually still meets the outcomes that companies are looking for. So if I think about, I guess, the service we provide to customers today, we still fundamentally believe that we're a people-led digital business. And we, as the business, still need to make decisions and choices about fundamentally the service we want to provide and where we want our customers to see our value. And I think of, when I talk to our team, I think about, AI is good at the IQ, but you still need humans to actually drive the EQ. Like, for example, AI will help essentially TMC and customers get to a desired outcome quicker. So the way we're looking at it is, what are the services that customers just want quickly and easy? What are the repetitive tasks that just don't really need human intelligence? Things such as, really basic bookings, basic changes, travel-related questions such as, what's my luggage allowance? How long does it take to get to the airport? Things like, can I have a copy of my invoice, etc. We're really looking at, what are the tasks and information that can be self-serve or provided automatically to create more of a seamless booking experience. But on the flip side, to your point, Poppy, there's elements of travel that arguably could be replaced with AI, but I think we as customer and organizations still value the human interaction, like where human intelligence, emotion, empathy still come into play. So we think of the travel world, complex bookings, different routings, the experience. Some people really want to talk through their options and get comfort of a professional, particularly in the VIP world. Or, an example of, potential disruption management, but even just down to an individual, like if I think I'm at the airport and my flight's cancelled and as a result I'm going to miss my daughter's dance concert, I would be so stressed and anxious that even though I probably could do it on my phone through AI, I would actually want to speak to a human to talk about how can you get me home as quickly as possible and have that human connection. So when we, when I really think about service, Scott, I think about, how do we automate the ordinary to deliver the extraordinary? And that's our mantra, and we really talk about, how do we use AI to use and deliver services that don't necessarily need new human intelligence, but what that does do is allow us to deliver a fantastic experience when people really do want to speak to a human. So, there's some things we've done in our business already. We've taken this journey on board and, we are managing internally our inquiry much more efficiently. We have AI categorizing our inquiry. We can deflect inquiry. We can direct it to the right expert. We have a great 360 view of the customer. We can prompt responses. We can even through AI tell the tone of a customer just through their email and their phone conversation, which could lead to a different way of creating customer sentiment and understanding customer sentiment in the future. We've introduced more self-serve capability. We've got traveller prompts now to tell them about things like policy compliance, destination information. There's a whole bunch of things that we've done to improve our own business productivity, but on the flip side, we've seen a huge uptake and benefit to customers in terms of response times, accuracy, and overall satisfaction. So that's where I feel service is heading.
That's amazing. And I think what I take from that, Mel, is the importance of balance, right? I think you hit the nail on the head there a little bit. I mean, I don't know, Poppy, are we seeing a similar kind of approach in other industries outside of business travel in your experience? Do you kind of see a similar approach to how people are viewing this, or is it varied?
I do, but I have to say, Mel, I am so aligned with what you said. I think it is, and it is It's actually, though, so I love the conversation about sentiment, the importance of taking, I think how you said it, I loved it too. It was amplifying, using the, to give, automate the
ordinary to deliver the extraordinary.
Yes, that is spot on and beautiful. It's so appropriate for what you want to be doing. And some of the conversations we've been having, and where I think that AI is, can lean in so much. And I use the word digital twin, and I think it is appropriate here. Is about understanding the uniqueness of your traveler. It's about how do I understand that data to provide and predict the experiences that are going to most impact and resonate with my traveler, with the different demographics. So often in a lot of AI models, what I find is especially in the travel industry and the consumer travel industry that I might be exposed to, or in some of my corporate industries, is that the models are too one size fits all in what they're trying to automate. And they don't need to be. And that's where it's like leaning in, and it takes the human understanding, it takes the legacy of understanding the nuance of your travelers and all of that distinction to then have customized tools that really do support what information you have. If I can quickly share something really quickly, this is just slideshow from. You probably can't see this. It's a fish tank. It's an aquaculture reef that is in my kitchen. But I really love this example because it's an ecosystem, and your industry is an ecosystem that you have rich data around, and the health of that ecosystem and how much value you're bringing is so dependent on your ability to go from insight to action. And I think where you can lean into AI, so for me on this example, and why I love examples like this is, look, keeping this alive keeping it healthy in the space where I'm trying to look at it, be reactive, understand the needs of the creatures in here in traditional ways was very difficult. But this is, I don't know if you can see, this is what my aquaculture reef looks like now. I have, a battery of data that is unique, both in, it's unique across many different layers to allow me to have better forecasting and prediction and a specificity about what's in my ecosystem, so that I can make I can have better predictions about the needs of my travelers and my travelers, or in this case the creatures. When we talk about digital twins, for example, we go into a place where the airline industry is very familiar with air traffic controllers. That is a digital twin. You're trying to represent physical information or data, but in a way that allows reactive, information that allows people to make good decisions as fast and as possible with the best situational awareness about their ecosystem, right? And today we're in a place where you can optimize on so many different levels. If you have a traveler that cares most about carbon, if you have a traveler that cares most about different aspects of how their journey goes from a business perspective, you can optimize on that because you can understand and have the data about that individual. And AI can help, create what used to be, very unwieldy to think about in terms of the customization. Now that can be part of, what is that digital twin of your traveler or of your different demographics. And all of the knowledge to shape that is really in your industry, and it's such a rich area to build on.
I love the term digital twin. It's definitely it's an impactful term that I think we can all be thinking about. So you also said something else there that I picked up on, which was action for insight into action being the key, and I think that kind of gets me also thinking from the balanced conversation we were having. If you apply that to the corporate lens of budgets, they're always a challenge. So Mel, maybe talk to us a little bit around what do we see customers prioritizing and focusing on, and how do we think that technology can be playing a bigger role in helping corporates budget?
Yeah, well, I think customers are always focused on reducing cost, and travel is no exception to that. I don't actually see that changing, but what I do see is AI transforming budgets is the application to what Poppy said, the use of data, and in our world, I think also content, which is a form of data, I guess, to create better visibility and greater control over costs for our customers. So one of the biggest challenges that I think about we're facing in the industry today, and it's both for TMCs and our customers, is the actual fragmented nature of content in the travel industry. So, we host content in a multitude of sources, from GDS to websites to aggregators, and we've now thrown in a different way of booking the exact same airline seat with NDC coming into play. So we've created utter confusion. But customers just want the best value, the best price, the most sensible way to travel. They just want assurance that they're getting the best option. And we've actually made that quite difficult as an industry. But I do think AI gives us the ability to consolidate and present that information now into a normalized format for both us as the agent and the customer, which will ultimately lead to better savings, choice, and confidence. And then you can overlay the customer policy on top. And that's, where you're going to get great value, but within policy guidelines. So we've actually started this within our own business recently, and we've not only seen a huge amount of time reduction in pulling together quotes, but we've had a much better application of policy and budget at the same time. But I think, going back to that data, I think what the real game changer when we think about AI on budgets is the ability for each company to actually capture data, but really focus in on what's important to them as an organization, as opposed to generic. So, as you said, we've got a huge ecosystem. We capture a huge amount of booking data, not only what we collect, but also what we can draw on from the wider travel industry. And I think if we think about that big data term and how AI can normalize that data together, customers can actually make more pointed decisions. So I guess an example would be if, we're wanting to negotiate better supplier deals, you can not only draw on the data trends, data sets, average pricing of your own company, you could merge that to a multitude of companies. You could then combine that with other industry source information like airline number of seats, capacity, schedules, lounges, on-time performance. You can mesh that together to summarize, what is actually a great choice, not just on price, but on value as well. You could apply that thinking to, carbon budgets. You could do it to manage real budgets in real time, and I think you could analyze individual and business trends far more easily than what we can today. Were you going to say something, Poppy?
No, I was just going to say I 100% agree. I mean, I think it's exactly where you want to be going. I mean, when you look at companies like Pros that, some of the, they've been behind a lot of the airline pricing models, but they are really one of the, most rapid, impactful model, what I would call a digital twin pricing model that is influencing, and you can start thinking beyond pricing about what matters for your demographic, for your customer, for down to a very granular level in the way that Mel is speaking. And some of the other optimizations that I also really love that you mentioned earlier, which was sentiment and when the human is so critical, right? Because what is the cost of that? If you lose customers because they never reach a human when they need one, it's a terrible thing. I look at where a company I've worked with that uses a lot of AI agents, and it took me. I started calculating the human cost to me working with AI agents sometimes that are not customized in the granularity they need to be for the response. And it costs me maybe an extra, can cost, the people in my team hours, and that will lose your customer. And so it's when you can pick up on the sentiment to know when the human needs to step in and have data helping drive and optimize when that escalation is important and it feels seamless. That is really powerful on your budget as well, I believe, because you're knowing how to navigate that in a way that gets your quality of service, and you're optimizing value and quality of service and comfort at much more human levels. But really, it's about optimizing your budget, even though you're thinking about the higher layer human conditions.
Completely agree. And I see a lot of companies write their travel policy with a major intent of cost and budget control. But, as we've talked about, a lot of companies and a lot of people are looking for that personal and that, individual experience. And I think there is a way of doing that now with AI, not only what I've talked about with data and, having different opportunities to present different views, but you can actually use data to help influence human decision-making as well in that budget process. So, I think, if you've got as a company, you've got a preferred airline or a hotel and, that's what you want to stick to, how do you then use AI to help guide that person that they're actually making a great choice and it's a good choice for them in that, what features of that property are the best? Why is it so close to their office location, or it's got great restaurants nearby, etc. So it can actually give people the feeling that even though they're being directed to that choice, that they're feeling like they're making that choice because it's about them. It's not necessarily about budget or control.
So I think the other big topic worth talking about here is the rise of individualism. Obviously, more travelers care about their communities again. Cancel culture is a big thing. Consumers are still heavily influenced by social media and loyalty programs. What a big deal across our industry. So Poppy, with so much choice out there, how do we tailor the experience? Like, how do we manage corporate policy but still honor individuals' choice?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great it links very tightly back to what we've been talking about, which is it's all about data. In the end, it's about how do we get the data? How do we use the data? Loyalty programs, and you have to have the more access and acceptance, and in the traveler shares with you about their behaviors, and that you can understand, you're able to customize through AI and predict and enable and optimize for their experience. Like one traveler in their let me give an example. I have multiple travelers who are very senior executives that I have worked with for many years. They all want to book their own travel. Okay. Not because they don't trust someone else to do it for them and they work with their agent, but they want to find their flights because they are data nerds and they love that aspect of it. It gives them joy. It's nothing about it, but they just absolutely want to do that. They won't let, and it's just, and I get it. I'm the person who calls United when they don't let me see certain bits of data and suddenly change something. I'm on the phone, calling every day. Why can't I see this? Even though we have, people we work with, and it's not about that appreciation. It's about knowing that brings someone joy. So, and they want to be able to see and have that influence. So how do you use that and know that's one traveler, where another traveler wants a black box and wants to show up and be, know that everything has been handled for them perfectly? Those are two elite travelers, both brilliant, both very specific needs, and both easily identified and tracked and enabled in the right AI models and support. It's like in one case, you're allowing one thing, but you're optimizing on a different level. You're enabling them and you're engaging with them because that's part of their behavior. These are things that I think as you think and we think about, how do we create a system of hyper-personalization where I have a different executive who all they care about is my carbon footprint. And all we care about is tracking that, not just at the level of the carbon of the plane, but let's go to multiple scopes. And we've got a full gamut of ESGs that I am trying to track maybe in my own models on the other side. But so that information allows you to optimize for that traveler, but at a low cost to you for having to be so granular in thinking about your models. You suddenly start being able to use the data, and it's just about, you have all the data, but how do I weight it? How do I identify where someone falls without it being like I have to build a new product? I have to think completely differently. I'm still the one really trying to enable the best personalized experience, but I get to use these tools to help make, think differently, think richer, allow someone to arrive in a place where they feel very satisfied, but also like they've had agency in whatever domain that is in making sure that they, arrived in the best, journey they could.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mel, I guess being in front of customers all the time and understanding this predicament more than many, what do you see in today's travel landscape around choice versus policy? What are the big pull and pushes there?
I would probably say, Scott, that I think we need to challenge ourselves actually on how we can bring a more personalized experience to policy management overall. I still think we can hit company objectives because we now have this brilliant AI data collective that can help drive that. But, if we think about back to Poppy's example of the different types of travelers, like travelers actually want choice. So some travelers, are very ESG focused, some are not. Some want more of a boutique, homely stay hotel. Others want major chains. Some want benefits that, frequent flyer benefits, for instance. They're away from home very often. They want to actually have points to take their families away. So therefore it is important to them. So it's an absolute procurement nightmare. I agree. But I just think we can actually show traveler preferences, but also link policy with AI helping us do this. So I guess a couple of examples. If we take sustainability today, choices of sustainable products, I guess, are based on initial supply negotiations and then individual, selecting at time of booking, which AI can definitely help influence that for sure. But what AI can also do is take a more bigger picture, a holistic view. So it can actually look at the entire data set of an organization, like who else is traveling to this destination or meeting, who else could be doing car share, could there be a more efficient routing, are there hotels that offer more sustainable practices, etc. So I just think we need to potentially stop looking at the individual and the choice of that individual at the time, and kind of zoom out and look at more across all data and what better decisions can we make. Loyalty is probably the one that is the biggest challenge, I think, and we know it is such a big driver of traveller choice. And there is no doubt every traveller can find their way around a travel policy when it comes to protecting their loyalty status. So I wonder, is there a world that we can look at bigger picture, that every traveller actually gets to pick their carrier of choice within reasons, safety reasons, etc. But can AI help measure that total cost of trip versus the individual choice? So, if we think about things like with loyalty comes, status such as benefits such as free luggage, lounge access, Wi-Fi, which is probably all expense to a company anyway. Could we start looking at total cost of trip versus, the preferred of an organization? And actually, are we still meeting the benefits of saving cost, meeting safety standards, etc., but actually making our travelers feel like they've made the choice, which happy traveller, happy community, happy workforce, right? So I think there's a way that we could think differently about policy and still delivering on what travellers really want and need.
That's a wonderful perspective that I think is very real today. And you absolutely can. And it's interesting because, one example, I call them the data nerd, but it's really also in many cases, even when all of the travel is covered, within a corporation, it's still about optimizing, right? And it's still about being able, because most executives, most individuals that are committed to a company and loyal want to save the company money when it comes to travel today. And that may have been different 10 years, but I mean, in economic times right now, and also in but they care about comfort. They have to, they want to fly business class. They want to be able to, at the same time, do it more often because they might want to be connected. And so it's like optimizing in these ways so that it allows them to travel. The target may not be one trip. It may be, then I get 3. And I want to I want to optimize for carbon as well, or I want to optimize for being able to be more connected to my team in person, because it's been a long time since we were able to be. And this does, save our company money down the road. But if we can navigate the travel, and we have a total budget that we can allow more connection, more people to travel, it becomes really important to them. And that's not always captured, right? It's often like very bucketed into to not represent the dynamics of what might be company needs different than what the policy is. So how the flexibility to work in that can give, a lot of, success to the company overall.
Yeah, that's brilliant insight. So time has truly flown by, to use a travel pun, but it would be remiss of me if we didn't take just a second to reflect on what the alternative take is here as an FCM thought leadership piece. So apart from rushing home to get myself a digital twin, I love what Mel was talking around there, really challenging ourselves and challenging the industry to see how we can embrace AI. And certainly Poppy has highlighted all the ways in which that is possible today. So Mel, what's your key takeaway for the audience?
Look, I think we do have to challenge ourselves. We now have the ability to have personalization, choice. We have information, we have data. We have the ability to have better decision making, which gives us the ability, I guess, to rethink the ways of the past. But I think what's important, and I think it's a really important point to note, is that we know that AI will augment the human intelligence. It's not going to completely replace it. And I always truly think you're going to need an expert to guide you. You're going to need someone to challenge your thinking. You're going to need someone to navigate the path forward. And let's face it, that's why TMCs are here. So, we're here to obviously bring that all together and to make the complex simple. So, yeah, looking forward to more AI and conversations with our customers.
And Poppy, what's your final thought or advice for those who maybe want to start embracing the future?
Yeah, no, I'd say the thing I'd challenge you to is, one where we say one size doesn't fit all, one model doesn't fit all. understand the different, it's like this awesome ripe time to leverage all of the insights you have to really make sure tools support what you need and not what you're given. And I think that's where there's a lot of, understand how they work, but also where they don't. And there's a lot of opportunity to customize and use the tools that are available to support your needs and the different granularity of the demographics and where that you have to support. And then I would say, embrace the word digital twin. It's not about an avatar trying to emulate anyone. It's about what data most matters and where can I get it and how can I weight it and optimize it in different ways to let me have the best predictions and insights that I need to make better decisions for my company. So.
Brilliant. Well, that just leaves me to give a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Poppy Crum and Melissa Elf for your time today. Amazing panelists, and I've really enjoyed the conversation. And thank you for joining us, everybody, online. I hope you found the conversation thought-provoking. We've obviously only scratched the surface on what's out there to talk about, and there is much more to unpack. So if you want to get your hands on more resources, you can head to our website and check out our content library, as well as subscribe so that you can get the latest Think content direct to your inbox. So thank you both. Take care and safe travels to all.